Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm so glad to be here at the conference, and it's pretty exciting for me. I'm going to sort of be the ambassador of the stone features in New Jersey. So I'm going to start with we'll call it a stone field trip across northern New Jersey. And I'm going to press a button like that. Here we go. So I'm going to talk about two things, those sites that maybe you already know about, that are already popular in New Jersey. And I'm going to also talk later about sites that you may not be familiar with. But some of the better known sites are these two, and this is just in my opinion. The Tripod Rock in Kinnelon in Morris County, New Jersey, and also the Parsippany Rock Shelter in Parsippany, New Jersey. So the Tripod Rock in Kinnelon is a pretty prominent, well-known glacial boulder erratic. And you see it in the left-hand picture there. It sits up on three prominent, smaller boulders. It's pretty interesting. The top of that boulder has a triangle on it. And we look at these stone features, see that as an important icon mark. You'll also see in the smaller picture next to that, there's a dude playing a guitar in that little picture, if you can see it. And that person's looking through two other boulders that also sit up on pedestals. And we know that to be a summer solstice sunset alignment. And that's a very, very important feature, and sort of helps us understand that this has Native American background to it, because those boulders that the guitar player is looking through are kind of manipulatable. They're of a size that could very well have been moved and placed there. This was written about this solar alignment in 1970s by a person, Bruce Schofield. Maybe some of you may know him. Matt Adams, who was so helpful to put this mic on my neck and do the recording for us all, is going to be leading a trip there. He's been studying this for a long time, and he's found special alignments to this at this location, and you'll want to take his field trip on Sunday to see that. The Parsippany Rock Shelter here on the right-hand side is in my hometown. All my high school friends would smoke dope and drink there, but did I ever get there? I never saw it until like 6 years ago. Believe me, I really wasn't there as a high school kid. But it's a rock shelter, so a place where Native Americans are known to have taken shelter under that stony rock. I don't know why that would be comfortable, but there's been archaeological digs and finding artifacts. But what's most compelling about this site is this little smaller picture here shows a petroglyph that was verified by Ed Lennox, who is an early charter member of the NIRA and lives in New Jersey and had his own archaeological firm. He's very well respected about his studies on petroglyphs. And he verified that these petroglyphs were made by Native Americans. And one is of, I think it's a panther. To me, it looks like a giraffe because it's got a really long tail. But there's a mammal, an animal. Oh, yeah, get that to work. Yeah. Hot damn, what do I do? Right, press that? Yeah. Press that button. Hot damn, there it is. So I think the head is up here and it's a giraffe, but actually the head is down here.
Oh, could you stand a little bit more?
Sure can. Oh, in front of this?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Here we go. So that's the head, and this is a tail, but I look at it backwards and think it's a giraffe. And this is a solar, sort of a sun circle. So that is the two sites that I think, in my opinion, are the ones you might have known about from New Jersey.
Mark, do you have any comment on the Native American chief that's on the other side of that?
Oh, Matt is probably speaking about another petroglyph that is at this site that he's explaining might look like a Native American chief. I just visited with Ed Lennox a few weeks ago, and he said, oh, it's a bummer that somebody, well, he didn't use the word bummer, he's more respectful than that, but he was disappointed that somebody had vandalized that site, and he felt that this other petroglyph, which sort of looks,
Egyptian.
yeah, kind of has a fish scaly thing, or how you would draw like your mother with an A-frame dress. It's really not. It's not an authentic. It's not an authentic petroglyph.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
But the next group I'd like to explain are the sites that you may not know. Some of the sites that I've found I'd like to share with you, and those are going to be examples of cairns, stone chambers in New Jersey, perch boulders, which you have in many of the New England states as well, a really magnificent turtle effigy I'll tell you about, and something that I'm beginning to wonder more about and scratch my head are home sites that are combined with Native American CSL features. When I go to these sites, I find it so fascinating to perhaps be the first person to see these sites as Native American ceremonial sites that haven't been acknowledged as that in a long time. And I've been marking them as I come upon them with an app. And that you're looking at a picture of my cell phone from my iPhone, and it's showing all the locations that I've come upon. And I use an app called Map Marker, and that's what these dots represent. In that app, I can add GPS features, and I add a photograph. Here's a photograph on the left from a different app that I put in there. This is Dan, who's going to be speaking to us later today about things all up and down the East Coast, Dan Pizzoni, who's here today. But in this app, you get a compass bearing, you get a lat long, the day you took the picture, who you are. It's a good way to document things. All the things that I document, I share all the locations that I've discovered with the Ramapough Lenape Turtle Clan. And I've been so fortunate to make a good relationship with the clan mother there, that all the information I have, I've been able to share with them. So let's start with a place that some of us went to today. I was happy to lead a group of people to see this site at High Point State Park, and I call it the AT Cairns because it's on the Appalachian Trail. So this is the largest cairn field that I'm aware of in New Jersey, and that includes the number of actual stone features and its acreage that it covers. And like I told you, the Appalachian Trail passes through it. So what we saw today was this LiDAR image. You can see these dots, these raised buttons on this LiDAR feature are each the cairns that we saw. And here's an example of what one of those cairns would have looked like. What we saw today, we stopped at the High Point Lean-To, which is a shelter on the Appalachian Trail that's built just outside the bounds of this cairn field. And the CCC built that in the 1930s. And when the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, was building this, it's no doubt that they probably came to a nice pile of stones like this and pilfered those rocks to make the lean-to that's part timber, part stone. But I've now been able to record this cairn field with the New Jersey State Museum and our New Jersey SHPO office. So that should offer, I hope, some protection to this site and all those sites that are on that list. So now we'll talk about the largest cairns that I've come across in New Jersey. These are the largest in size, individual cairns, and how big they are. This slide here, remember I keep talking about Ed Lenick. Mr. Lenick gave me his slide collection that he had amassed over his career, his slide collection of stone features, all up and down the East Coast. I've since shared those with Walter Van Rogen, who is our archivist here for NERA, and he's downloading those into the file. But this was one slide that Ed took of a stone wall in New Jersey. I'm thinking, why would a guy who's the archaeologist find any interest in one more stone wall? But I thought if it was important enough for Ed to take a picture of that, I should pay some attention to it as well. So I went and looked on LiDAR where that slide is reported to be from. And it's the Barrett Farm in northern New Jersey. And the Barrett Farm is on the National Historic Register of Historic Places. But when I looked on LiDAR, this screen is what I was able to come upon. And there is a wall that's right here that goes from this point, goes 2 miles due south from here in pretty much a straight line. But the wall stops right here and makes this little arch. And in here, inside that spot, we have these big dots again. And I've been looking at LiDAR a long time, and I thought, those are too big. They can't be cairns. It's just something else. But I had to go investigate it, and yes, those turned out to be cairns. Each of those are about 35 feet by 35 feet by 5 feet high. They're pretty sizable. They're fairly well stacked, but really are impressive on the landscape. Something I'd like to bring up where I'm asking questions, and maybe you could help me understand, is I'm comparing these two LiDAR images. They're not to scale, but they have something in common, and to me that is the shape of the fields that are outlined in stone. So the one I just showed you, it's got this kind of, I don't know, kind of a coffin shape or a crystalline shape. And by golly, here's another field 50 miles away, and in this wall array, here's that same shape. And I think, if I were laying up stone walls, why wouldn't I just make that square like the one next to it? Why would I make this shape? Well, I don't know why I'd make that shape, and if you know what that might represent, maybe we'd like to all learn about that, because to me, it's incredible. This site is a very, very important, means a lot to me anyway. It's a site that I found here in New Jersey as part of my past job as a state employee. I managed nature preserves. When I brought the Ramapough Lenape Turtle Clan's chief and the medicine woman to show them this site, they were immediately taken by how important it was to them and their people and their ancestors. The medicine woman called it a healing chamber. She felt it was had some spiritual movement as a healing chamber. And what we see in this site is obviously this gigantic split limestone boulder. Some say it's geologically just a big boulder that's split. But you should focus on this cairn. There is a cairn on either side of this split, a crescent-shaped cairn. And the medicine woman advised me or pointed out that those cairns, the way they're assembled, lead you into the center, important space in the center of this gigantic split. And there's only one way to get into that. And those stones lay that out for you, sort of a sidewalk, if you will, to get into the middle of that. This site also has a perch boulder here, and there's other cairns in the vicinity and walls as well. The clan mother has put an awful lot of, she's marshaled an awful lot of resources of universities and archaeologists to come and do a study of this CSL. And I'm looking forward to the time when they feel comfortable to maybe share that with NIRA in the future.
Where is that?
Well, like the last speaker said, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. This happens to be, these are all in New Jersey, so this is in Sussex County, New Jersey. So many of you are from New England and New York State, and I know you're very proud of your stone chambers, and you take those as important for you. Well, New Jersey's got our own stone chambers too. I was lucky enough to find these in New Jersey. They are within a quarter mile of each other, maybe, even less than that. They're visible from one to another. And they're domed inside, and they're all stacked stone, corbeled stone without mortar. I've given a presentation on these in a previous NIRA lecture, and that's on YouTube thanks to Matt Adams, and you can see that. Your states all have perch boulders. We do too. This is one particular site that I came upon. It's a 3-acre area, but it's just chock full of these special perched or balanced boulders. This one here is perched on 4 stones. To perch something on 3 pedestals, like a 3-legged stool, is always level. But to get something to rest nicely on 4 pedestals is a harder accomplishment. But that's a pretty special stone there. My nephew is an art teacher, and I gave him a photogrammetry, a little app where you can sort of take a movable picture, and I gave him the coordinates of how to use that. And he made a little 3D model for me, and I really enjoy that. I keep it on my desk at home. This is one I like as well. There's a split piece of bedrock, but then there's another basketball-sized stone right there, and this massive boulder is just jamming that down. Many of these splits and those splits that are filled with stones are often important in Native American culture. This one's a doozy. This is a real favorite of mine in LiDAR. So much of the places that I've been able to find in New Jersey is through the help of LiDAR. This is what I believe is a turtle effigy. And I think it's a turtle effigy because we see the way it's rounded, it's oval. It's got a flat little top there. Lots of times turtles will have that. They're sort of, a snapping turtle might be that kind of a turtle, or a painted turtle. But I'm a wildlife biologist, and I see turtles where somebody else might just have seen just a simple circle or first seen nothing at all. But looking at LiDAR, you see that the center of this is raised, is domed, just like a turtle would be. It's an 1.5 acres in size, which is a pretty substantial effigy. And but you might ask, like, well, that's a great turtle, Martin, but where is the turtle's head? It's got no legs. Where is its tail? That can't be a turtle. Well, I like to think of it this way, that turtles bring their heads and their tails and legs for protection. And why can't this turtle be that way? And we got a lot of things, there's a lot of dangers in the world, and maybe this turtle's just trying to wait out a little time to see when things get better. When I was able to bring the clan mother to see this turtle effigy. She and some other friends who I brought here as well all pointed out a second turtle effigy. If you look really close, right about there, there's a turtle effigy, the kind that we all think about. Here's a cairn, and there's a rock that's tipped up, and there's some legs that could be interpreted. But they all see that as a second turtle effigy on top of this 1.5 acre turtle effigy. To me, that makes it a pretty powerful place. The walls that represent the outside of this turtle carapace are nothing special. They're the walls that we see in the woods all the time. They're not made any different. They're not arranged or stacked in any particular order. But without LiDAR, to know what you're walking over, that wall is leading you into a sacred, what I think is an important space, you wouldn't recognize it as a turtle, I don't believe.
Mark,
Yes?
what is that made of?
Say that again, please?
You got the wall around and then the LiDAR shows that dome. Like, is that all like?
That is earth. The dome is an earthen mound. I think it's earth that was put there when earth was made, but I don't think it's a man-made mound, but it is three-dimensional. And when I went there the first time, I was just excited by the shape. Wow, there's a stone outline of a turtle. But I didn't notice that it was three-dimensional and had to go back to see that again. And it's smooth. It's just like a turtle shell would be. So this is the last topic I'd like to talk about tonight. And this is something I'm scratching my head about. And these are home sites that also have CSL features. So these sites have foundation pits. Not just these sites, but I'm going to show you two different styles. But both of the styles I'll show you tonight have the same features. They have walls, they have foundation pits, they might have a well, but they also have a cairn feature. And I've outlined these in red. And I've broken these down into two different types. This is a type, and these are my interpretations. I'm not studied on this. I'm just trying to explain some ideas in this way, that these are a style of home sites that I'm saying have linear and regular wall features. So each slide is a different home site, but they all are nearby to each other within half a mile, quarter of a mile. And they all, if you follow that line, there's a common line here. They happen to be on a block line. So we have property lines, blocks, and lots. So this is a block line that goes quite a distance. But along that are these three house sites. And each of them are different, different locations. They all have their little foundations. Thank you very much. There's a foundation. But their walls are all going off in the same compass direction, to this northeastern direction. And they each have a cairn field that's sort of set off in a separate part of the wall unit, and just sort of outside of it. Let me see where I'm at here. So let's go to this style of home site. This style I'm calling non-linear or irregular wall features. And it has some of the same things we talked about. It's got foundations. it has walls, it has a well, but it also has these cairn features outlined in red. But these walls don't look anything like the linear ones. These are all crazy. They have no geometric shape. They don't seem to me to have much agricultural function, at least in a row crop kind of way. But the common theme is there are these cairn features, and I think those cairn features lend the idea that these have Native American associations. I wanted to talk about the house foundations, or what we've been led to think are the foundations. And here's an example of this style of irregular or non-linear walls. And these are 3 stone square features, and maybe they're paddocks, but they don't seem to be foundation bases that we could determine. But here is a foundation in the middle of this same, I'm calling these home sites CSLs, but this has a cut stone foundation. The corners are square. It's got a flat top to the foundation wall where you could build a structure on it. But still, the structure is pretty small. For building all those stone walls, that's not much of a structure to live in. These sites don't seem to have a foundation that's big enough to be a barn or big enough to be a house. So I don't see a place where somebody would actually live in the way that I would want to live anyway. And here's one last example of those foundations that we are thought to think are house foundations. This one is really small again. These are about 12 feet by 12 feet. This has no square corners. The corners are rounded. The door is off center. And what's interesting is that, what I found interesting is that there's dirt buttressed up around the outside of the stone wall. And if you took the arch that the dirt wants to begin to form, it would make a nice domed roof, much like those chambers that we were thinking about earlier in our talks. It doesn't lend itself to an agricultural use. So these ideas have my head spinning, and I'm thinking that with the cairn fields that we saw in these pictures, that stonework seems Native American, and possibly it leads to the question of, are these foundations really colonial foundations like we've thought before? Well, those are the things that I've been looking at in New Jersey, and I hope you'll come to see some other sites in New Jersey while you're here. This you can see right outside our window. Maybe they have it lit up with a big light, but this is our monument at High Point State Park. It's a monument to veterans, and it's built on the highest point in New Jersey. I've read in books that that was once a sacred site location. I've read about that. And from the monument, you can see 3 states, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. Or you could step in all 3 states if you just stood right on that dot. That is the Tri-State Rock. You can find it under Route 84. You probably drove over it to get here. It's at the back end of the Laurel Hill Cemetery, right off Route 6 in Port Jervis, New York. So maybe you'll find time to go see that. I want to say thank you very much for allowing me to be the spokesperson for the stone walls of New Jersey. And I want to say thank you very much to Jim Wilson, who's here in the audience, and Betsy Brewster, who put so much effort and time into getting this to work, this conference to work for us this week.
So I need the other one.